Hey everybody! Today we're going to be looking at setting up Unreal Engine materials in Blender 2.8, and I'm going to be using the Blender app template I'm developing. There's been a few changes since the last release that are going to be reflected in this one, and I'm hoping to have anything that you can see me using today available in the next day or two. With that said, let's get started. So here we are in Blender 2.8, and you can see we've got the Unreal Mannequin here set up with all of his textures, normal maps, the proper materials. The first time I did this, I just kind of slapped a basic beige, sort of plasticky looking material on him and said close enough. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought I'd like to have him, set up exactly the same way in Blender now that it's got the EEVEE game style rendering engine. And so I took a look at how he was set up in Unreal and recreated him here in Blender 2.8 to be the same. And I'll show you how I did that. So this is the man here. We'll go over to our material editor, click on the guy. You can use Control Space to go full screen in whatever viewer you're in Blender. So just a quick little overview. I'll show you how we did this. That's the body, and there's also the chest logo has its own separate material slot, but basically is the same thing as the body. So we're going to go back into our object mode. We're going to hide this guy, and let's look at how we did this. We're going to go into Unreal. You can just open your basic third-person template. And here we go. Here's our guy. So we're going to click on the mannequin that we want. In this case, it's a character, and it contains the mannequin. You can see the mesh component. That's what we need. So we can click the little magnifying glass. We'll browse straight to that asset in our project. And we can right-click on the mannequin, Asset Actions, Export. So I'm going to export this guy. Let's call him UE4 Mannequin, and we'll put him in the Blender Files folder. Looks like there's already one in there. Whatevs. SK Mannequin. No, I don't want that. Blender Files, Unreal. Oops. Blender Files, Unreal Mannequin. Save. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what the Blender 2.8 best FBX compatibility is. I know there are some issues with FBX. I've had decent luck leaving it at 2013, so I'll just do that. I'm going to leave everything else as is. So we're just going to export, and that's pretty much all we need with that. And then here in Blender, in your file folder, you can navigate to the one you want, but we are going to need to use the import dialog for the FBX. So we go import FBX. Where did I put it? I put it in Blender Files. Here we go. Unreal Mannequin. And I'm going to leave everything else as is here. I didn't want to change anything. I wanted it to be a one-to-one import process. So we import our FBX. And here we have him. Mannequin. No materials there. You can see it's all plain. There's no detail. But we have our mesh and the skeleton in there. So it looks like he was added to the architecture tab. We're just going to take you and you and you. And we'll move you to your own tab. So we can click this button right here to create a new collection. That's basically like the folder. So we're going to double click here. And we'll call this New Mannequin. And we can take all of our mannequin files, throw them in here. And we don't really need to be looking at the skeleton, anything else, so we'll just hide anything that we don't need, just for the sake of simplicity. Okay, so how do we get this guy looking more like he does in Unreal Engine 4? We'll take a look at Unreal Engine 4, and we'll see how they do it. So here he is. I'm just going to drop down my viewport speed a little bit. Here he is. We've clicked on him here. So let's take a look. This is the mesh. Let's take a look at his materials. So materials in here, we can see he's got a body and a chest. The chest, it turns out, is just a child, a material instance of the main instance, the body instance here. So this has most of the info that we need to set this up. So let's double click here. I'll just drag the node editor over and we can zoom out, and I'll just bring this in a little closer so we can see everything together. And zoom in. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So we've got something called body color up here. And what this is just a color. It's a vector parameter, so 3 RGB basically values. We've got 0.451, 0.404, 0.361. What does that give us? It gives us this sort of beigey brown color. So that's basically our body color right there. And you can even see it's outputting the color here to material, plastic, shiny beige again. So we've got material masks packed into RGBA. This is kind of where the magic is happening here. So what this is a material mask. So you could see that in our viewport here, we've got this sort of beige plastic, we've got this grayish aluminum, and we've got this black rubber material. So he's made up of 3 different material layers. When we look, we can see the body is just one material. So the way they do that is they mask each different material into an RGBA mask. So basically, red, green, blue, RGB get separated to our 3 different materials. So if we follow the output of the red, we can see red controls, where is it going? This guy right here, which is blending the soft metal material. So that's the material like around the ears, the aluminum material as they call it. Next node down, we see the green in this image, and we can follow that up to see that that is controlling our plastic beige, the majority of our body material. Sure enough, you look here, you can see the back of the hand pretty much. It's not easy to make out everything necessarily, but you can see little details, little clues if you want in the mask itself. The last node here is blue, comes off, and that controls our glossy black latex. So sometimes it's called black latex, black rubber. Basically, it's the black material. So that gives us an idea of how they're setting that up. So this controls the color blend of everything, which color goes where. Then we've got a normal map that controls all of those little indentations that you see. So like this little line in his head here, all these little details on the earpiece all throughout the body. All of that stuff is done with normal mapping, which basically just gives you like a raised texture. Okay, so now that we are armed with that, let's take a look and see if there's anything else. So it looks like the body color feeds this material layer, and then there's a few other material layers, ML underscore. That's why I'm getting that material layer from. And we can look in here, and sure enough, there are some material layers. So let's look at what we've got here. We've got a material layer of the metal, we've got the plastic, and we've got the glossy black, which probably is waiting for a shader to compile. Then we've also got a few textures here. Texture for the aluminum, we've got a normal map for the aluminum, and then we've got the same for the rubber. So what we're going to do is, yeah, there you go, the shader finished compiling. So we're going to use these in addition to our RGBA and normal maps to recreate the nearest approximation I can of this material in Blender. So what we're going to do is we are going to navigate to all of these different files, and we're going to export them. So we can start here. These are the ones we need. We're going to take the textures. We're not so concerned about material layers because we'll basically be recreating these with nodes in Blender. So the important thing to remember is how they look. This can give us information about what we should use in terms of specular or metallic settings for our BSDF shaders in Blender. And if that's all mumbo jumbo, just you wait, I'll show you. So we right click on that, Asset Actions, we export, or let's bulk export, and let's just send them right in here. So we've sent those textures into that same folder as our mannequin. Let's take a look, no, we're not going to save any changes. Take a look at what else we might need in here. So character, textures, And here we have the rest of the stuff that we need. So I'm going to select all these. We're going to do the same thing. Bulk export. And we're sending them into that Blender files, same folder. So there we go. We've got everything we need. Going to hide Unreal. We're going to get back into Blender. Okay, so here we've got our guy. We're going to go into our material editor. And here we go. So we've got our material output here. So the first couple of things that I want to deal with are the basic mapping of the colors. For that we'll need our RGB mask. So I'll drag that in. And we're also going to need the mannequin's overall normals. And that'll give us our texture effect. So we could plug that into our normal map. And actually, now that we've got these going on in here, let's just pop into full screen mode just to make this nice and readable for everybody. So we've got our mask right here. And what we're going to need to do is it just outputs color, whereas in Unreal, it gave you the color in addition to a separate RGBA. The nice thing is Blender does allow us to do that. We just need to add an extra node. So for that, we're going to go to, I believe it's Converter, Separate RGB. And we can plug our color into the image input here. And now we have essentially the same control that we had in Unreal. We've got our separate RGB channels. So using this mask, we can start separating the RGB in the same way that it was done in Unreal. So we'll pop back in here, and let's get back into our material, our body material. Make this full screen, because this is where the magic happens. Okay, so first things first, we need our beige body color. Back in Blender, we're going to go, you can use Shift-A, you can also just go up to the add. I'll probably mostly be doing that just out of habit. We're going to go Input, RGB, and we can slap this down, click in here, and I'm actually just going to put in these RGB values because I remember them from having done it a few times. Oop, not that that matters. And 0.358. I think in some instances it's 358 and some it's 361, but you can just set it to whatever you want. I found ultimately I needed to tweak all the colors exactly, tweak all the colors a little bit. I couldn't import them exactly. You can go into Unreal and get the exact RGB values, but just given the different rendering, the different lighting, it didn't show up exactly the same, so there were times that I would tweak color values just to get it a little more in line with how I thought it should look, rather than the actual numeric values. We'll just disconnect this node here. We'll Alt, click and drag, and then I'm going to plug this into the base color of our principled BSDF shader. So I'm going to have to give a shout out right now to a couple of resources that helped me tremendously. This next step was one thing that I was missing. I basically had all the other elements in place, and it just wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why, and I found this page, so I'll put this link as well as the next one I'm about to show you in the description. And this was just basically the final thing that I needed. So I knew I had to separate my mask into RGB, which I'd done. What I didn't realize was I needed, if we click here, this subtract node. So I basically had the image texture going into the separate RGB and then straight into the mix shaders, which did not give me what I was looking for. So these subtract shaders are where the magic, or these subtract nodes are where the magic happens in this shader. So once again, I'll put this link. Let's see who it is. Who it is. It is CGSlav. So thank you, CGSlav, for helping us with that. And then we'll just get our other little bit of shout out, Katsbits.com. This helped me figure out the alpha mask that needed to be done on the logo. So I was getting that sort of a little square around the Unreal logo that should just blend seamlessly into the chest. And this was what I figured out. There is a transparency node in the material editor here, this guy right here. So thanks to Katsbits.com. So we're going to do that next. We're going to get this, we're going to add a converter math node. So this is another thing that I found a little bit confusing with Blender. You don't add an add node, a multiply node, you add a math node, and then you set that to whatever math you need it to do. So we need 3 of these. Let's just get these out of the way for now. Add this, copy, paste, and then we've got our 3. So we plug the R into the top slot, the G into the top slot, and the B into the top slot, and then this bottom is going to be our variable. And someone who is a more knowledgeable person about shaders, technical art, can probably tell you why they should be set to the values they are. I just found I had to monkey around with them a little bit until I got the result that I was looking for. Kind of the same thing with the color. And we will start adding our mix shaders. So Shift A, shader, whoops, mix shader. So once again, we're going to need 3 of these, 1 for each of the channels. So we'll just do a quick little copy paste, and connect our shader into the top, and then the value of the subtract node will control the factor of the shader, or the alpha, or the mix value. Okay, so that gets us our base color in there, and that gets that connected into the mix module that's going to control all of them. That is ultimately going to be connected to this mix shader, and then we'll get our normal map here. We'll plug the normal into the displacement. We can plug our normal map texture in here. And by default, Blender is set to give you a repeating texture. So we're just going to set this to clip because we only want to use the image as the size that it is. I've had better luck with non-color data. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Clip. And let's take a look. So he is entirely black. And that's because... Oh, did I connect this wrong? I did. So we want this value connected to this factor, and this value connected to this factor. And we're going to set this value to 1, which still doesn't do anything. So we might as well set up the rest of our material, I think. And to do that, we're going to need these other textures. So we've already got our mannequin RGB, our mannequin normal. So we're going to bring in our rubber normal map and our rubber texture. We'll set that up quickly now. We're also going to need to get back in this full screen mode. And actually, let's start to do a little bit of cleanup here. So these guys are all related, put them in a frame. These guys are related, put them in a frame. Then we can start moving frames around. Oh, that is probably why we are not getting any output. Put those in a frame, put these 2 in a frame. They were so nice, I put them in a frame. Okay, so we get these set up. The rubber material is black, so let's just copy paste this guy, and we'll set you to black. And then we'll need another principled B SDF shader. Plug this into color. We are going to Oh, actually, no, we're not going to do that right away. We're going to use a multiply node. So let's add another converter math node. Make sure we set it to multiply. Half the time I just leave it at add and I wonder why it doesn't work. And then I go, oh yeah, that's why. So we're going to multiply those together, plug that into the base color, and we're going to set this to non-color data. Once again, clip the image, and we've got our normal map here, so we'll plug that into our normal. Non-color data, clip, and then this will go, actually let's do a little bit of cleanup here too. I like my nodes to be neat and tidy whenever possible, which is usually possible. Connect those together, put them in a frame, and we're going to plug this into the third. How do I know this? I've done it once before. Back into our control spacebar, back into our file viewer mode, and we'll do the same thing again with the aluminium. Oh look, we can see our guy there. He's starting to look a little more like him. A little more like himself. Okay, so we've got our aluminum normal map, so we're basically just going to need to do exactly this again. So we'll copy paste. There's probably a better way to do this, a faster way to do this, but get this in here. This one's supposed to be a sort of a lighter gray, so we'll make that a gray. Non-color data, clip, non-color data, clip, plug that into our normal, plug that into our base color, then we will once again do a tiny little bit of cleanup here. Not super neat and tidy, but we'll get it done quickly. So that's our aluminum material. We'll plug that in there, and then we should, oh no, this is when we have to start tweaking our values here. So I'll give it a second to compile, and we can see things are not exactly, you know, we're closer than we were at the beginning, but this is not our Unreal Mannequin as we know him. So that is going to be done by tweaking these values here. You can see we're going to start getting some craziness happening. Tweak them way up, tweak them way down. All of these are incorrect. The answer is somewhere in the middle, which I found to be 0.3. So we'll give them 0.3. And that one is controlling our, I believe that's our aluminum material there. And then the next is our base color, which we'll leave at 1. And then this last one is our rubber material. And we can crank this guy all over the place, all up and down the map. And we will find that in the end, 0.02 seems to be the most reliable thing. So we're still not getting exactly the look that he had in the other engine. So this is when I had to flip back and forth to do a little bit of material comparison. So you can see that the color here is plugged into this material layer, shiny beige. So that is the information that we need. So if we close this, I don't want to save changes. We go into our material layers. Let's take a look at how they've set up their shader. So you can see here, we've got make material attributes. Most of these are not set, so metallic will be 0, specular will be 0, roughness will be 0.1, emissive, you get the picture. So let's go in to our shiny beige node and set it up to be the same that this node is. Blender, here we go. I already forget what I just said, but I'm pretty sure it was metallic 0, specular 0, roughness 0.1, and then the rest is all set to 0. Index of refraction we're going to turn to 0. Clear code isn't on, so let's see what that has done for us. Shaders take a second to compile. Hoo boy, he is already starting to look so much closer. So that takes care of our beige. We can come back in and play with this. He looks a little bit too rough for my tastes, so this is again where a case of we're porting over the exact values and it's not really giving us what we want. So I found once I cranked the specular up, that gave him that plasticky sheen that he has in Unreal. So now that we've done that with the plastic beige, let's look at how they did the other materials, this aluminum on his ears and this rubber around his neck and inside. Back into the Unreal again. We've got glossy black. Here we go, we'll look at this. So they got something a little more complex, I think, than I ended up doing, but like I said, this got me kind of close enough. They're using the texture, the color, multiplying it by a tint, and then putting that into the base color. They've got a lerp, which is a linear interpolation, so they're going between two values based on the red channel. I don't understand what that is, but we've got roughly a value of, let's say, 0.6 for roughness, and then we've got the normal map plugged in. So metallic and specular will be at 0. It's not emissive, meaning it doesn't emit any light. So we'll just plug our roughness value in. We've already got the base color plugged in, so let's take a look back in Unreal. That was a cat, an unhappy cat. I'm sorry, cat. I will play with you momentarily. Okay, so we'll set this metallic to 0, specular to 0, roughness to 0.6, which it pretty much is. So we can see that looks pretty good. We're going to go back into Unreal one more time, and we'll take a look at how they do that shiny, the soft metal they call it. So this one has a metallic value of 1, a roughness of about 0.4, and then it's got the same funky things going on. Okay, so then we go back into Unreal and we check out our soft metal material. We can see it's got a metallic value of 1 and a roughness of roughly 0.4. So pop back into Blender, and we've got our gray material here. Metallic value of 1, specular, let's give it specular of 1. Oh, heck, let's just do our, what did I say, 0.4. So here we go. We should be pretty much set up. I'm kind of finding that that is not looking bang on to me, so I'm going to darken the color a little bit. And that brings it a little more in line with what I was expecting to see. And maybe I will give it that 1 specular back. Not that it changed a whole lot. So that is how we set up our body material. And then if we look, we've also got this chest logo slot. So we can basically just do the same thing that we did with the chest, or with the body rather. So we drag and drop our normal map, then we can drop our node, our image texture node, and we'll just quickly go through this in roughly the same way. So we will add an RGB, pop in our 451, 404, and 358. We're going to then add a math node, set this to multiply. This will be the top. Our image will be the bottom. And we're going to set this to, once again, to clip. Normal will go into our normal as non-color data. Clipped, and we'll also plug this into displacement up here. So this we will then, our color, we will then plug into our base color. Just clean these up a little bit. And this last part, let's see if we can take a look at what we got. So yeah, you can see we've got logo showing up as it should. However, we've got this big black outline around it. And this was the part that I was missing. This is the part where Katsbits saved me. So we're going to add our mix shader. There we go. And we're going to add a transparency shader. I'm just going to leave it at white. We're going to plug this into the top. We'll plug our base color image shader into the bottom, and then this will get plugged into our surface. And I feel like we need, yeah, we're going to use the alpha for the image as the factor. So that then gives us the alpha mask, which is not exactly what we're looking for various reasons. I believe I used an additive blend mode. And there we go. Now we have our Unreal Mannequin set up using the closest approximation I could find to the original materials. I'm still not happy with the color there. It looks a little bit faded, but now you know how to do it on your own. And if you're curious about the way I have Blender set up, once again, this is the Blender 2.8 app template. I'll have a link down below, and this is the 0.2 version. It's still very early on in development, but I've had a lot of fixes since the first release, and I'll have a video dedicated just to that pretty soon. Thanks for watching.